Okay, so the title of this video, let's talk about it. I think this is the best condenser microphone on the market. And I think I need to explain that a little bit because I have my reasons, but they're probably not what you think. See, because tone is subjective. I would never call a microphone the best microphone purely based off of tone. That's a little bit like saying there's such a thing as the best color. There is not. I could say purple is my favorite color, but that doesn't make purple the best color. But there are a few things that are a little bit more reasonable to measure off of that I think make a best microphone possible. So here are 4 things that we're going to go through in this video that I think make this microphone the best. 1, build quality. 2, design. 3, heritage. And 4, the most important thing, innovation. So let's go through these 4 topics. I then have a full production only using this microphone for you to check out. Then we're going to do a whole mix breakdown on how I used all the unique things about this microphone to create that track. Oh, and a quick aside before we go to the couch to continue the review. Austrian Audio did send me this microphone for review. It's important you know that. I don't want to give it back. Okay, so let's start with build quality. So back in school, when I had access to a professional studio, I had the good fortune to interact with a lot of expensive microphones. And you know, one thing I learned is expensive does not mean bulletproof. I worked with U87s, I worked with Royer 121s, I worked with Coles 4038s, I worked with the Neumann M149. It's like a $5,000 microphone. And a lot of these microphones were in and out of the shop. Now, of course, keep in mind these are students using these microphones and we kind of abused them, but the point I'm trying to make is a lot of these microphones were pretty fragile. And I feel like I've never dealt with a microphone that feels this nice. Hate me if you want, but the U87 did not feel like a very strong, substantial microphone. It was relatively delicate. It was getting injured all the time. So obviously I can't speak to the long-term quality of this microphone. I've only had it for about 2 weeks now. But if it's anything like its estranged sibling, the C414, it will last. Those were the only microphones in the studio that were used in nearly every studio session that refused to quit. And this thing feels like a solid gold bar. Well, it's silver, so it feels like a solid silver bar. It's astonishing how nice of an object this is simply just to hold. It feels incredibly substantial, right? So a common test that us microphone reviewers like to do is to tap on the microphone, right? See if we can find any resonant frequencies, any problems there. So let me show you. That's very good for a microphone, and for a comparison, let's put it up against a TLM 102, and then for fun, let's put it up against the RE20, a dynamic microphone that should theoretically perform much better. And not only that, this thing is really great at rejecting the environment around it and purely focusing on what's in front of it. You guys know this. I have a trash room. There are dogs barking outside my apartment all the time, always somebody honking. I'm right in the flight path of JFK. So there are constant planes going over my apartment, especially when I'm doing condenser reviews. But this is by far one of the easiest microphones I've had to deal with in terms of recording a condenser. It still takes multiple takes. It always does with a condenser microphone. But this is by far the most painless. So if you have to worry about your environment like I do, this thing has great off-axis rejection. So let's talk about number 2, the design. Let's be honest with ourselves here, because as musicians and producers and audiophiles, we are all kind of stuck in the past. Let's just take me for an example. I'm a guitarist. My favorite guitars were some of the first guitars ever designed. Stratocasters are from the 50s. I have other Les Pauls. Les Pauls are also from the 50s. If we all had our choice as a producer, I'm sure many of us would choose to mix on a Neve console from the 60s rather than the most advanced studio that we have available today. We are wrapped in this culture of nostalgia. If you want to look at a company that innovates poorly, what about those electric tuners that Gibson used to make in the mid-2010s? We did not take that well as musicians. So when there is a piece of new equipment that comes into the fold that sort of satiates that inner vintage desire that all of us have on the inside, but also can offer a bunch of new, very useful innovations, that is a winner for me. If you can satiate the old school desire that all of us audio nerds have, I mean, come on, think of vinyl, with new practical innovations that legitimately have the power to change the culture of audio recording, that is an absolute winner in my book. And we're going to get to these technologies a little bit later. So let's talk about number 3. Heritage. So for those who don't know, Austrian Audio, along with a couple other companies, are an offshoot of AKG. AKG got bought by Samsung. AKG, I believe, closed their offices in Austria. Hence, a lot of that talent went to new companies. So the flagship AKG microphone is the AKG C414. And this is the Austrian Audio OC818. So they're not really being subtle about it, are they? So the capsule inside of the OC818 is based off of the older capsules that you would find in older, more legendary C414s. Specifically, it's based off of the original AKG C414EB. That capsule is called the C12 capsule, and the capsule inside of this is the CKR12. Not subtle. But the thing is, those old 414s are now going for like $5,000. So they've figured out a way to recreate that same capsule in a much more consistent manner, a much more consistent manufacturing process. Not only that, the grill is designed in a more efficient manner. You might remember on the 414, it has 2 separate grills kind of put in place by one singular pillar. This has a cage that goes all around the capsule. Now the goal is to actually suppress more RF noise with this design than you might get in something like the old 414 design. I will link to an article in the description where I learned a lot of this information if you want to go check it out yourself. So to get to the points that I'm trying to reinforce, this is a vast improvement in my mind over the 414 that is available today, but not for the reasons you might think. To me, there are vast improvements to the build quality, the design, the innovation, all the peripheral support to the tone, but the actual tone of the microphone to me is pretty similar. And I don't want you to think that is a bad thing. People who are on this channel a lot will know that the AKG 414 is among my favorite microphones of all time. This is a very similar sound profile, but with vast improvements around the microphone itself. It's a much better body and holistic design. So we talked about some of the improvements over the 414 that this microphone has, but let's talk about the innovations that are completely entirely unique to this microphone. Things like a split dual capsule, meaning you can record 2 different XLRs out of the same microphone. Things like an app to control all the features on this microphone, which is what I'm currently doing. We'll do that in a second. And one of my favorite things is a plugin that can change the polar pattern depending on the frequency band that you specify. You want omni in the low end? Cool. You want cardioid in the high end? Awesome. That's crazy. All right, so let's go with the app for a second. So currently I am on cardioid mode, and as some of you will know, this thing comes with a bunch of different polar patterns. I can adjust that on the app itself. So now I'm in figure 8, and I can always have a bunch of adjustments in between. Now it does take about 15 seconds in order to get there. That's no big deal. This is going to be really useful if you're using this in a studio setting. Maybe you're in the control booth and the artist is in the recording room. It also has an override during the last minute. So that means if you happen to clip, it's going to tell you on the mic itself. A good way to monitor on the run. These are all ease of use things. These things make it more useful in a studio that is a very busy environment. Everything conveniently in your hand rather than monitoring all the outboard gear or the DAW or anything like that. Or maybe you're checking to see how many Instagram followers you gained after your sweet recording session while doing another recording session. Now there is one thing, if I could give one critique to this microphone, it is actually the app itself. This was the point of frustration for me. I think it's clear that microphone engineers designed this app, and I think the UI could be a little bit better. The logo at the top is really low poly and really low res, which leaves it with kind of a cheaper feeling than the microphone does. I would get a lot more inspiration from the people over at Ableton. They do software really well in the music industry. The Bluetooth dongle was a bit of a frustration for me, and it is also something you have to pay extra for. Whenever I was initially doing testing with the app, it paired once I got the hang of it relatively easily. But the thing that was frustrating is whenever I came to start doing this review, I went to go reconnect it. It wouldn't reconnect with my device. It couldn't find my device, so I made it forget the device. It still wouldn't connect. I made it disconnect from my iPhone's Bluetooth memory as a whole. Still wouldn't find it. I reset the microphone's Bluetooth setting by pushing it over to the regular cardioid setting and back back to the Bluetooth setting. Still didn't identify where the microphone was. The only thing that worked was turning phantom power off and on, which I think reset the Bluetooth dongle itself. So something to keep in mind, if you cannot connect to the Bluetooth dongle, make sure to just restart the phantom power, and I think that's your best bet in my experience. I also found it quite weird that the devices listed were just a bunch of code, or just a list of letters and numbers. Even the OCR8 was just a list of numbers that I found because it was a bolder number than the rest. That's how I knew it went with this device. It just seemed like perhaps the software was the weak point, even though I'm still a huge fan of the software, and I do think eventually with time they will iron out these issues. Again, this is kind of new, untrodden territory for this kind of thing from microphone companies and audio, so we'll get there. All right, that's enough talk. Let's do a song. We're going to use this microphone to record every part of this song. I will do all the mixing with it, and then we will do a mix breakdown on how I decided to mix this mic and also work with the plugin that is included with this mic. We also have Ethan Toga here today, who is a regular on the channel. As many of you know, he makes amazing music. Just go follow him.
Lay me down by the riverbed. Let me drown in the riverbed. I get lost in what you said. I can't seem to find my head. And all these eels in the water, they just keep nibbling at my toes. If they get a taste from my blood, oh, I know they won't let go. Oh, the current's closing in. I never learned to swim. I can't find my way out. Oh, I can't find my way. I can't find my way out. Oh, I can't find my way. I can't find my way
All right, guys, I hope you liked that song. Definitely not a full mix. I think it probably needs a little bit more work if it were going to be published anywhere, but it's good enough for this demonstration. We are not going to go through the entire mixing process. If we did, that would be a 25-minute video. So we're just going to talk about how exactly the OC818 contributed to these mixes and its unique characteristics that made this a different recording process than normal. Let's start with the acoustic guitars, because I think that's where this mic kind of shined the most. That was the most effective use of this mic's features. So the yellow is the front of the OC818. It's the main capsule cardioid direction. The back is the back of the capsule. So let's hear just the front, and then I'll add in the back. We're adding air, and I think we're also adding a little bit of energy. So what I did was I used the back of the mics as if they were a room mic, and I kind of reverbed them out and made them a lot brighter, and it adds kind of this higher level of energy to the acoustic guitars, and I think that was really successful here. So if we just listen to the back of the acoustic guitar, Valhalla Supermassive on that, super mixed in. We could add more energy by adding more highs, or not. And the other thing that's happening there is both of them are pretty compressed, medium compressed. The only other thing worth noting about the guitar is it's sidechained to the vocals with a mild amount of compression. So that means it'll duck under the vocals and get just a little bit more strength. This is not a video on sidechain compression. Not gonna go into that any further. Let's hear the electric guitar in isolation. Nothing really special here. This is just the front of it on my Fender Deluxe Reverb Tone Master. That's a solid state version for your guitar geeks out there. Not the best tone, but I think that's more me than anything else. I could have positioned it to be a little bit brighter and cut through the mix a little bit more, but you'll notice some automation on the reverb there. Anyone who's using Ableton, I have the Valhalla Supermassive automated to bring in more reverb as we get that sort of like second phrase. And you guys know, people who know my mixing style know I swear by automation. So there's a ton of automation all over this thing. So you probably heard some automation on the volume there as well. Let's talk about the vocals. The same technique was used on the vocals, where we have a vocal back, but this time we're using the Polar Designer. We're not acting as like a send on this. We're just sending the vocals to the reverb on this one. So the back of the capsule is not acting like a room mic in this situation. I'm using it to thicken up the vocals. Let's hear what I mean.
And I can't find my way out. Oh, I can't find my way. I can't find my...
It's adding some beef. It's pretty subtle. Here's it just alone.
And I can't find my way out. Oh, I can't find...
Let's see what happens when I start to move these around. You can see that in the low regions, we're actually making a supercardioid. Everything else is either wide cardioid or omni.
And I can't find my way out. Oh, I can't find my way.
It's interesting because the more omni you have, it seems like the more of that sort of frequency band is being brought out. Actually, going into supercardioid or figure eight seems to be diminishing the presence in that range.
Out, oh, I can't find my way. I can't.
So another thing, probably one of my only complaints with this plugin, it's really interesting and I really like using it to my advantage tastefully in certain supporting roles, but it does seem to add a bump in dB. It seems to just add like a general boost in volume, and I'm not sure how helpful that is. I think that can lead to volume bias. I think you could just maybe think it sounds better just because it's louder. And, you know, even if I level this thing out, it's still going to add volume.
And I can't find my way out. Oh, I can't find.
So a little bit of a dB bump there, but I still, in general, love the tone of this plugin. I think it's very helpful for adding boost and supporting rolls. I think this, combined with the opposite end of the dual capsule, they fit like peanut butter and jelly. They work really well together. In conclusion, the most helpful thing in terms of making this production with this mic was definitely the split dual capsule. Being able to have two separate audio recordings of both sides basically makes this a built-in room mic, which opens up a whole range of options for you. When you combine that with this plugin, this Polar Designer plugin, suddenly that opposite end of the capsule becomes way more useful because you can sculpt that once room sound into a more solid, thick sound, depending on how you sculpt the polar pattern. Hopefully that was helpful. Let's go back to probably the outro. Okay, guys, this is an amazing mic for me. It ticks all the boxes. It is innovative while still remaining true to its heritage and being just a marvelously built, absolutely wonderful design. I cannot vouch for this microphone enough. I think it is at the forefront of what microphones can be at this point in time. And I am really sad that I have to send it back. You can follow me here on Instagram. If you'd like to work on a project with me, you can email me here at realaudiohaze@gmail.com. And with that, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.